It's been just over 6 months since Epic Universe officially opened to the public, and to say the reviews of the park have been split is an understatement. While many guests have left feeling they've seen the future of theme parks reflected in Epic, a just as large group has felt underwhelmed by the experience. The expectations for the first brand new theme park in Orlando in 25 years were high, and came along with the added scrutiny of social media letting people share their opinions with the world instantly. As I've watched the discussion around the park become more and more polarized, it's led me to really think about my experiences at Epic. I've been fortunate enough to visit the park a lot this year, but I think more importantly, I've gotten to see Epic through the perspective of a lot of my friends and family visiting it for the first time. Seeing how different people with different affinities for theme parks take in the experience and how their opinion of the park is shaped has really opened my eyes to this weird dichotomy that Epic Universe has inadvertently created, and I don't think it's being talked about nearly enough. The way most people visit the park is wrong, but it's not their fault. I do want to take a second to kind of set the stage here. This video actually originally started with the idea of doing a more standard review of Epic Universe just 6 months in. But the more I talked about the park with friends, the more I realized how incredibly difficult it is to review a brand new theme park when there's not this shared perspective of what the park is and isn't. This really got me thinking about why there's this gap in perception and how it came to be, and it kind of turned into this video. So to try and start on some common ground here, I want to talk about what Epic Universe does well, then what it doesn't do well, and then how that led us to the current reviews of the park and how things might change in the coming years. Let's start with what Epic Universe does well and begin with just the layout of the park. I went into way more detail on this in a previous video, but the short of it is that the layout of this park is perfect for the type of lands that Universal wanted to achieve. Having the portals serve as a singular entry point for each land lets each land stand alone and avoid awkward transitions throughout the park. This allows the park to feel perfectly cohesive, even though the lands couldn't be more different from each other. This is complemented by Celestial Park being this massive central land that serves as the thematic explanation for the portals and the park as a whole. Celestial Park also provides a break to allow guests to process and digest each portal separately, forcing them to take the time between the portals. All in all, the layout of Epic Universe fits perfectly with the land design, the story, and the experience that Universal was trying to create. The next thing the park does well is the rides. Plain and simple, Epic Universe has a great lineup for a brand new park. Now, I think it's really important to separate the ride quality and the ride throughput for the context of this discussion, but I promise you we will get to ride throughput, and spoiler alert, it's not in the good section. From a ride design and quantity perspective though, Epic Universe checks a lot of boxes. Having 12 true rides on opening day is comparable to other parks such as Islands of Adventure, and makes the park not feel underdeveloped. But beyond quantity, the quality of the rides is strong. The park just has some of the best rides in the world, bar none. Monsters Unchained is a completely immersive dark ride that features an insane amount of high-quality animatronics that you get incredibly close to. It took the risk of creating an original story that has layers that guests are supposed to unravel as they experience the ride again and again. Victoria Frankenstein is a complex character whose lore was created to make all of these monsters existing together make sense, but at the same time, Victoria's story makes it feel natural. The ride balances thrills and scary elements while not being unapproachable to the average guest, which was the only way it was ever going to get the budget to be created. It's a crowd pleaser that has just enough of an edge to fit into Darkmoor. Pair this with the gorgeous queue and facade, and you get a world-class ride that can headline a new park. But just across the park, you have Harry Potter and the Battle at the Ministry, which can also serve as the park's headliner to some people. Now, I know a lot of people have opinions on if Monsters or if Ministry is the best ride at the park, but to me they're just such different approaches and experiences to even try to compare. While Monsters perfects the practical, Ministry pushes forward the blending of digital and practical in a way that I don't think we've seen since The Amazing Adventures of Spider-Man. It all starts with hands down the most impressive queue ever created, so much so that the queue itself can be an experience for guests. The scale and budget put into the queue alone makes this attraction a headliner. Then, the ride itself to me is similarly impressive. While I'm not left with the same excitement I get after exiting Monsters, I'm left with a sense of awe at the scale and ambition of the ride and the ride vehicles specifically. The archive scene might be my favorite moment on any ride ever. I think the ride came in with these impossible expectations, and that combined with its reliability and show quality issues early on has soured some people on the ride more than it deserved. Then you have Stardust Racers, which takes the thrills of something like Velocicoaster and brings in the dueling element of dueling dragons. Each of the coasters could stand alone as a headliner at any major amusement park in the country, so having the two intertwining next to each other is just incredible. All this while being themed to an original idea and not an existing brand. Using the ride to play into how the Celestians use comets to travel from portal to portal is something that I think got lost with the cuts to Celestial Park Entertainment, but I love that there was a willingness to build these massive coasters as essentially a prop in the story of the land. Now, I'm still not sure if I like them bringing in Doc Brown into the story with the flux capacitors on the back of the trains. Well, Back to the Future has so little representation in Orlando, but I can just ignore it because I can't wear glasses on the ride, so I don't really see it that well anyways. Now, I also need to talk about the sleeper hit of the park in Hiccup's Wing Gliders, which is just a perfect family coaster. It's the perfect amount of thrills to be fun for everyone while not scaring kids away. Then you pair it with a solid, easy-to-grasp story and Test Drive, and you get a ride that just elevates the standard family coaster to a different level. Beyond those headliners, the park still has a collection of other high-quality rides that round out the lineup and make this a park that people want to visit. The quality of rides is what gets people in the door, and I don't think that can be argued. The next thing that Epic Universe does well is the food. Plain and simple, Epic Universe is the best food park in Orlando to me. While Animal Kingdom also has some really high-quality options, Epic just has a much wider range of cuisines and more standout offerings while also having less duds. The only food I've been disappointed with at Epic was the Butterbeer Crepe, because it's just too sweet for me, but if you like super sweet things, that's right up your alley. I've eaten at every restaurant in the park except for Comet Dogs and Le Goblet Noir, and as much as I have my favorites in places like Blue Dragon and Spitfire Grill, and not just for the mac and cheese cones, the bowls there are incredibly underrated, I don't think I've eaten at the same combination of places on any visit. The food all being at the same quality and uniqueness level makes it easier for guests to find the type of food that they enjoy the best, or explore something new without fear of having bad food. Like, I love Islands of Adventure, but the quality difference between Captain America Diner and Circus McGurkus is shocking, considering that they're in the same park and serve up similar cuisine. Epic has a consistency to food quality and taste that makes it a major part of the experience of any good day at the park. Speaking of good food, this video is sponsored by HelloFresh. HelloFresh is the world's leading meal kit, and they deliver fresh, pre-portioned ingredients with easy-to-follow recipes right to your door. They take away a lot of the hassle that comes with planning meals and going grocery shopping, and personally for me, they really helped me become a lot more confident in the kitchen after I graduated college. HelloFresh actually just revamped their offerings with double the menu size, so there's always something for everyone. Plus, it's even easier now to swap out proteins and veggies to your liking. So right now I'm making the one-pan steak and bell pepper lo mein, and this is just not something that I'd normally go for. Look, as much as I love like some comfort food, I live near theme parks, and I end up having to eat theme park food a lot more than I probably should. And so it's nice to be able to come back and like have something that's more substantial and fresher. HelloFresh is actually offering you guys a freeze willing 4-star chef's knife on your third box, which itself is a $145 value. That's on top of 10 free meals and free shipping on your first box with my discount code BMODEHFZWL. Make sure to use my code to get this deal before supplies run out. Look, it's not perfect, but neither is Epic Universe, so I'm going to take the win on this because it smells amazing, it tastes amazing, and it was easy to make. So yeah, I'm going to finish this up and then literally just head right behind where the camera is because that's where I do the rest of the video. And thanks again to HelloFresh for sponsoring this. The final thing that I want to hit on that Epic Universe does really well is entertainment and world building. This all starts with the 2 stage shows that the park has, with the first of them being the Sircar Canoe, which had the kind of impossible task of acting as the only experience in the Potter Portal besides Ministry. It also had to fit within the Fantastic Beasts universe, while understanding that the average guest is likely completely unfamiliar, especially compared to the rest of the Potter universe. To me, Cirque isn't perfect, and that starts with the pre-show or Act 1. This section can feel a bit exposition heavy, but is carried by a phenomenal magic trick or wow moment. However, that can't make up for the time spent standing in that room and the size of that room relative to the capacity of the true theater. The amount of people who I've heard get concerned that they would just be standing the entire show a few minutes into Act 1 is concerning, and it makes for a bad first impression for the show. Once you're moved into the theater for Act 2 and 3, the show gets much better, even though I don't think it's for everyone. It's a beautiful, bespoke, and a bit avant-garde show that features unique circus skills in Act 2 and then transitions into a puppet creature show for Act 3. Due to the time constraints of a theme park show, I think each act feels a little bit rushed, but not so much that it detracts from my appreciation for the art of the show. It's not for everyone, but it's a nice supplement to the rides of Epic Universe. Then over in Berk, I think you have a similar story for their show Untrainable. Is it for everyone? No, but I think it does have a much wider appeal than Cirque. The show is family-friendly and tells the story of Vikings and dragons learning to live together even when faced with an untrainable dragon. Instead of separating its moments into acts, Untrainable is more of a sum of its parts, with dancers, live singers, percussionists, puppetry, and stunt work all throughout the show. It also has an incredible wow moment where Hiccup enters the show flying with Toothless over the audience. Now, the show isn't perfect, the dialogue itself isn't great, and there are a few scenes that do really suffer because of that. My friend and I actually have a running theory that the show was written for Beijing and then translated into English, and some of the clunky language can be attributed to that, as well as the change in role from Stoic to Gobber to fit with the timeline of Burke. The show also has more critical technical elements to the story than Cirque, and when things are missing or broken, it can make for some awkward and disappointing moments, like when Toothless doesn't fly, but you still have the full rendition of the song. Nevertheless, I will always have a bias towards the show with live music and singing, plus I'm extra biased because these movies do hold a special place in my heart. These two shows, though, aren't the only entertainment at Epic Universe. Just in Burke, you have the Toothless meet and greet, random Vikings that roam around, the twins, Astrid roams the land, the Nightlights do a little show, and the Forge has its own little show with Gobber. Pair that with all the kinetics and hopefully at some point the Dragon Drone, and you get a truly alive land beyond just the rides. This continues in Paris with the transfer students, the Auror, Cosme, and the talking portraits, as well as all the wand magic and random animatronics throughout the land. In Dark Universe, you have the Bride and Frankenstein meet and greet, Igor, the Invisible Man, and the Hounds. There's also the violin player who tells tales of the village while moving throughout the land, and that's still maybe one of my favorite parts of the park. Just imagine walking around Darkmoor and hearing dramatic stings being played live as you witness this dark land. Then you also have the surges of electricity throughout the land and Burning Blade igniting periodically. Then finally, what Nintendo lacks in roaming characters, it makes up for with 3 meet and greet locations, some with multiple characters, and then the entire interactable game portion of the land. Now, this being an upcharge with the power-up bands is frustrating, but at the same time, I think of it a lot like the wand magic in the Potterlands. It will allow you to do more in the land, but no major ride or character is locked behind this paywall. Even guests without a power-up band get to take in the kinetics that those games provide, and that land does not lack in kinetics. If anything, it's too overstimulating for me personally, but I can see why kids love it. Now, Celestial lost a lot of its entertainment early in previews, but it still does have a stage for live music and fountain shows throughout the day, as well as at the conclusion of each night. This entertainment throughout the park works alongside the land design to create what I think is Epic Universe's strongest element, which is world building. The design of each land, starting from the single entry point, is designed for you to get lost in each portal for as long as possible, regardless of whether or not you've quote-unquote completed the rides in it. There's not a single ride entrance that's at the front of a land, and that's incredibly intentional. Each land has its own mini main street that you have to walk through, and the hope is that you get distracted and get lost in an experience, entertainment, dining, or just taking in the land itself. Epic excels in creating environments that you want to simply exist in because there's so much more to each land than just the rides. The true story of each portal happens around you more than it happens in a queue. So, if Epic Universe has all this going in its favor, why are opinions split? If you look at any reviews for Epic Universe, there's a common thread on the negative ones, and that's the rides. But not the quality or quantity of the rides for the most part. Their issues are in wait times and breakdowns. To put it bluntly, Epic lives and dies by its ride reliability on a day-to-day basis. I've visited on a lot of days where the rides cooperate and wait times are manageable across the board, but I've also visited on days where rides break down constantly and wait times become astronomical instantly at the remaining rides. Plain and simple, Epic had a rough first summer, and I don't think Universal was prepared for the challenge of bringing all these attractions up to full operation at the same time. For a lot of the summer, major rides were operating at a reduced capacity. While this can be expected of a new ride, the issue is when all of them are new at the same time. When the park itself is brand new and all of the rides are experiencing growing pains, the perception of the park will naturally take a hit, and rightfully so. While some breakdowns and issues are unavoidable, I think there was a strong pressure that was put on the rides to be open regardless of capacity, and because of this, the wait times suffered. For 4 out of the 5 lands, there's one ride that's designed to have great capacity and churn through guests. The most obvious is Monsters Unchained, which is running 40 plus vehicles that are constantly moving, allowing it to keep its wait time to a minimum even with really high demand. Ministry was supposed to have high throughput, but ran into a lot of issues with its safety sensors and certain show elements that severely limited it in the early days. Then in Nintendo, I'd think Mario Kart was expected to be a people eater, but for one reason or another, that ride just doesn't have the throughput expected, and because of that, all of Nintendo suffers, and especially Donkey Kong, which just does not have capacity at all. I hope that reliability is something that will naturally improve over time. Like, when I visited during the week of Thanksgiving, the park seemed to weather the crowds well, and the waits were incredibly manageable even without Express. But right now, you can't bank on the park behaving on any day you visit, and because of that, it leads to a bad guest experience. Another thing that led to the rough summer that Epic Universe had was the park's heavy reliance on coasters. Now, as a coaster enthusiast, I do love that we have a wide variety of coasters at Epic, but there are issues with that as your main ride type at a park, namely weather. This may be controversial, but I think that Donkey Kong as well as Curse the Werewolf would have been better suited to be a different type of attraction and not a coaster in a park that already has a great family coaster in Hiccup Swing Gliders. I think it would have been better for the park as a whole if they were indoor attractions or a different type of ride that could better fare in the weather. You also have to remember that Yoshi's, Race Rally, and Fire Drill are also outdoor attractions, and you really just get a park that doesn't fare well in Orlando's summer weather. In a lot of ways, it's the opposite of how Universal Studios Florida is at the moment, where that park has essentially no outdoor rides, but has an over-reliance on screens. Epic really does need more indoor, non-coaster experiences that aren't dependent on weather. The next thing that Epic does poorly is somewhat controversial, and it's the sightlines and shade at the park. The sightlines at the park are a mixed bag. You have a portal-like ministry with almost perfect sightlines due to just the sheer scale of the buildings. It's easy to forget that you're like 500 feet away from Stardust Racers at any given point. Nintendo also has super high walls around it, blocking views outside the portal. I also think Celestial Park has good sightlines because you get just a peek into each of the portals, but you don't spoil this big reveal of each. And Helios acts as this back berm for the park and blends in well. Now, that's excluding Stardust Queue, where you get an amazing view of back-of-house spaces, show buildings, and the gigantic expansion pad, as well as the sewage plant across the street. Now, Dark Universe also has some rough spots, and almost all of them come from looking backwards from the way you came in. Helios is just so close to the land, and there's nothing in between to block your view of it. While the hotel design is pretty neutral, Darkmoor is anything but neutral, so it really sticks out aggressively. I really hope some very tall trees can be planted behind Das Steakhouse to really cut down that sightline as much as possible. I also think as much as this isn't a sightline issue, it hurts the immersion of the land, and that's Curse the Werewolf's netting. I understand the safety and design reasons that led to its inclusion, namely their struggles to fit double-sided lockers into the queue, but I don't think the ride is good enough or important enough to Epic to not warrant more time in development to find a solution. Now, where sightlines suffer and where most of this discourse happens is Berk. While the land is beautifully designed, it has essentially no berm or walls on the side that touches Stardust or on the back of the land. This means that Stardust just looms over the land despite not being a part of it. While story-wise with the Celestians this isn't horrible, the average guest is getting taken out of the immersion here. Then you have Untrainable's show building, which while painted well is still painfully obvious from within the land and doesn't work as well as Hagrid's. In the back of the land, especially around Hiccup Swing Gliders, you get more views of things across the street and behind the park. Now, this feeds into the shade conversation a bit, but there are a lot of trees at Epic that will grow bigger, so in theory these problems should be far less prevalent in a few years. However, trees can only do so much, and you can't rely on just them to block sightlines, especially if you want it done thematically. Dark Universe has absolutely gorgeous horticulture that fits thematically, but those trees are never going to give you the shade coverage you'd want. Trees also aren't the only solution to shade for a park, because shade itself isn't the problem. It's guests being able to beat the heat. So shade combined with indoor gathering places and indoor queues and rides helps to curb that guest problem when implemented correctly. The biggest problem right now with Epic that's leading to this disconnect in reviews and experiences at the park comes down to how Epic Universe is ticketed at the moment, and the expectations that sets for the park. Right now, the only way to visit Epic Universe is to buy a single-day ticket that ranges from $140 to $210 per person. That's not cheap at all, and because of this system, every guest in the park knows exactly how much it costs for them to be in the park that day. When guests buy tickets to the other Orlando parks, they're usually not buying just an individual day, and because of that, the cost per day feels a little bit abstract. Without that abstraction of costs, guests naturally look towards ways to get their quote-unquote money's worth. And for the average theme park visitor, they're coming first and foremost for the rides. Then you add in that the first word of mouth out of previews was praised for many rides in the park, and you have the average guest looking at Epic Universe like a checklist of rides. For people to feel like they've gotten their money's worth out of the park, they feel like they need to complete every ride in the park, which just puts an additional strain on every single ride. It also then strains the already expensive express system, with guests paying hundreds of dollars extra to still have to wait in some pretty serious lines. I know Donkey Kong's express line can sometimes be over an hour, and there was a video recently of a team member estimating a 2-hour wait for Battle at the Ministry for guests with express. Plus, I'd be willing to bet that most guests who buy express at Islands of Adventure or Universal Studios Florida are going to end up skipping at least one of the attractions because it just doesn't appeal to their taste. But at the cost for Epic, every express guest is likely to visit every attraction. Right now, Epic Universe's ticketing model forces the park to be viewed as a collection of rides to jump between, but that's the problem. I don't blame guests for needing their money's worth and treating Epic like a rides park because of that. Every person that I brought to the park for the first time was drawn in by the rides and had that same mindset going in. I mean, I had the same mindset going into my first visit, but that was luckily during previews when lines were all incredibly manageable. At its core though, Epic wasn't designed to be a rides park like this. The park is designed for you to get lost in each world and spend time just simply letting the park unfold around you. If you go back to how the park was marketed by Universal beforehand, you'll notice so much of it focused on the lands themselves and not the rides. They love to use phrases like putting the park back in theme park and immersive worlds, which don't describe how guests bounce from ride to ride right now. You can't be immersed in a world if you're simply going from point A to point B. And putting the park in theme park is about taking the time to smell the roses. Epic Universe is a vibes park. From its layout, to its rides, to its entertainment, the park is about getting lost and letting storytelling unfold around you. You're meant to leisurely make your way from portal to portal and take in all the portal's offerings as a cohesive package and not piecemealed. In a lot of ways, I think Epic Universe is more or less what the general public thinks Epcot is. While to theme park enthusiasts, Epcot is a place of discovery and learning, for most people, that park is about vibes. When people plan a visit to Epcot, they're of course thinking about the rides, but they're also planning on spending a chunk of their day traveling the World Showcase, getting snacks and drinks along the way, and just spending time in each country. That's the type of visit that Epic Universe is incredibly well suited for. I realized that I was having more fun at Epic Universe when I wasn't doing as many rides as I was on those first few visits, and then when talking with friends after their first visit, the parts of the day that they enjoyed the most were when we just took a breather and just chilled in the park. That's when you get moments like an interaction with the Auror, or joking about tripping children to sacrifice them to a werewolf with the hounds at Burning Blade Tavern. In so many ways, Epic Universe is what the general public thinks Epcot is, and what theme park people think Animal Kingdom is. While working on this video, an interview with Joe Rohde came out discussing how Epic Universe really does follow a similar design philosophy as they did with Animal Kingdom, and it just adds to the problem of viewing Epic through the lens of rides. Rohde talked about how they focused on deep, intricate world building and emphasizing these small, intimate interactions over these huge mega draws. In Animal Kingdom, you get these small moments with things like musicians and scattered animal exhibits, and in Epic, you get them with roaming entertainment. These are human moments that can't be repeated the same way a ride can. So when guests approach Epic Universe like a collection of individual rides and not 5 distinct worlds to explore, they're going about the park in a way that its designers never intended. That's why you get these mixed reviews where guests enjoy the rides but feel incomplete in the whole experience. The rides aren't meant to carry the park, but now they have to, and any issues with their operation leads to negative guest experience. All this being said though, I still don't blame the average guest for doing the park in a way that goes against its design. At the end of the day, it's your money and you need to do what you feel is valuable, and if that's doing every ride in the park, that's fair. I think this is just the reality of building these environmental parks though. Animal Kingdom is still trying to shed the label of a half-day park solely based off ride count, even after major additions like Pandora. This is just the nature of charging the prices that modern theme parks do for tickets. For $200, it's completely fair to want to do everything, even if that means sacrificing relaxation. This problem isn't unique to Epic Universe, but I think it's the most prominent example of this disconnect between park design and guest behavior we've seen because we've had this constant stream of opinion and experience through social media. So, do I think this problem gets better for Epic Universe over time? Maybe. Going into 2026, Universal is now offering park-to-park tickets that include Epic, which is another step forward in obfuscating the daily price of a visit to the park. But I just can't imagine it drastically moving the needle because it's such a small subset of ticket options. Time is really the only thing that might shift how people visit the park. On a repeat visit, it's easier to know what rides you want to go on again and which you can sacrifice to find that time to just relax in the park. The rush of everyone visiting the park for the first time will die down, and I think Epic will begin to show its strengths through repeat visits. Similar to how over time more and more people have grasped what Animal Kingdom is trying to do as a collective experience. While there will be people who view that park as rides, there's now a much stronger group that understands the experience is about the environment you're in. I also think that over time, ride maturity will help mitigate some of the operational woes that the park was hindered by this summer. Does the park need more attraction capacity? Probably. But does it also need its existing rides operating close to their theoretical capacity? Even more so. I think Universal has identified the need for more weatherproof rides in this park as well. Not only have they filed permits to begin a massive expansion to the Ministry Portal, which will likely bring another major indoor ride, they've also filed permits to build what is believed to be a permanent flex space at the front of the park, which would replace the temporary tent built behind Stardust Plaza and open up that land for future development. Now, I don't think we're going to get a completely new portal in the next few years, but I do think it's coming sooner rather than later. While time does help fix things, I don't know if they'll be able to overcome the first impressions that the park left. Public opinion is tricky and not something that shifts easily. While us theme park nerds are tuned in and will give the park a second, third, and fourth chance, most people are making that once-in-a-lifetime trip, and they're not going to take those risks. That being said, when this park becomes made up of more repeat visitors than first-time guests, I think the park part of theme park will shine through even more. When you look at what Epic Universe does well on paper, it should add up to a great park. But right now, most people aren't adding up every single aspect of the park. They're laser focused on just the one aspect, the rides. This is something that I think would naturally happen with any new theme park opening, but it's exacerbated by Epic being designed for guests to get lost on their way to the rides. When they don't get lost, the wait times suffer, and then any issues in the ride reliability become detrimental to the entire park. If any of these portals were opened as a land in an existing theme park, I think more guests would partake in the lands the way that Universal designed, because they're not focused on making the next ride in a different portal. They're laser focused on every detail of the new expansion. This is why I think Universal made these lands this way, because they've had massive success with their lands that are a sum of their parts. Think of Diagon Alley, which is revered as one of the best theme park lands in the world. It has one ride that is good, but hasn't really aged phenomenally, and a transportation method to a different park. But because the entirety of the land is designed so beautifully and intricately, guests still flock to it and spend tons of time in it. Epic Universe works when it's looked at as a complete sum of its parts, and world building and entertainment need to be in that equation. For me, the most successful thing Universal can do for Epic Universe is shift the conversation of the park into a similar way that people talk about Epcot. Now, that's much easier said than done, especially when the initial marketing has already had a lean towards that direction. But long term, when the shine wears off, that's where Epic Universe best sits in Universal Orlando's lineup. Islands of Adventure excels at thrills. Universal Studios Florida excels at, well, it's complicated right now for that park because I think they're going to get reimagined in the next few years. But Epic Universe excels at leisure. If Universal can make changes to have guests go beyond the rides, I think this will fix the disconnect between how the park was designed and how guests choose to experience it, which would lead to a better overall experience for everyone. The park right now is misunderstood, but for completely valid reasons, and I think that's what makes it so difficult to review and discuss. But I hope that this has helped in some way make the park make a bit more sense. Thank you again for watching this video, and thanks again to HelloFresh for sponsoring it and supporting the channel. If you're interested in HelloFresh, remember to use my discount code BMODEHFZWL to let them know that I sent you. This will probably be my last video of 2025, and I genuinely can't thank you enough for the support. This year has been incredible, and a lot of that is thanks to you guys, so I really appreciate it. Happy holidays, and I'll see you guys in the next video in 2026.